Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. We're going to change up the conversation a little bit from some of the focus on digital health and talk a bit about hard science that underlies maybe some of the data you're getting off sensors and the pieces we've been talking about. And I will warn you, the clicker is not working, so if you see large hand motions, that's why. So at Breakout Labs, we started with the question of, so many people were discussing, should we be spending more on R&D? Should we be spending less? And is that really the question we need to be asking? Because we came at it and we're saying, what are we actually getting for all of this spending? So if we, everybody's talking about, are the NIH budgets up or, well, no, they're down, right? they're going down. What are we getting from all of this? And how do we leverage the federal funding that goes into research and the philanthropy that's pouring into labs to actually have that technology move forward and leave the lab? So we're coming at it saying, actually, there's lots of scientists, and you may be some of them and know some of them, that are working on ideas that have tremendous value and meaning in the world, and they're really lacking the ability to leave the lab and launch into the economy, where they can make an impact in doctors' offices, hospitals, in people, in the environment, and our economy. So when we talk about where the money is and where the money's gone, we're finding, and you're probably experiencing, right, the space of hard science and hard tech, and particularly this intersection of technology and biology, is suffering right now. Actually, it's a bit better now than it was when we started 2 years ago. But with the web-based economy, the excitement around software and apps, and the perception that you can move quickly with a faster return with a lot less risk and lower capital, we've seen so much capital moving to that side of the economy and moving away from this intersection of technology and biology, where we can really do some meaningful things and maybe not the next Snapchat. So when you look at the array of funding that folks that are working in hard science and hard tech and moving those ideas forward, we sort of have this lovely spaghetti of the craziness that people are going through to try to figure out how do they get those first dollars to work on a proof of concept, additional data, to take some technical risk out of the company, and then try to move through these stages of development. So our approach to that, and hopefully we're finding others that are inspired to join us, was to say, is there actually a way to use philanthropic dollars, so tax advantage dollars, to seed companies? We think of philanthropy as predominantly working through nonprofits, but we really see companies as the agents of change and the ability to bring new money to the table to help move this exciting science out of the lab and into the economy. So briefly, what we started was a revolving fund that uses these philanthropic dollars, and we've now funded 22 companies all across the range of advanced technologies. And we put the first money in typically, and we're looking for them to hit key technological or scientific milestones, give them a lot of support and introductions, and get them to the point that they could successfully attract follow-on funders to move to that next level of commercialization. So to give you a sense of the kind of big, bold, and crazy at times science that we're excited about funding, and we are constantly accepting proposals on a rolling basis, so we look forward to hearing from some of you. Gives you a sense of a company called Modern Meadow. They're biofabricating meat and leather from animal cells without killing the animal. Has obviously profound environmental implications and would open up a whole new world of materials. We've got another company called Longevity Biotech that's looking at making orally available biologics, so drugs that could make it through the GI tract as their mode of treatment, which obviously has profound implications and cost reduction. We have a company called EpiBone that's using a patient's own adipose cells to actually grow the perfectly structured, anatomically precise piece of replacement bone that's needed by that patient. And one of our companies, I can't see out there, Steve Axelrod from G-Tech is here today, if you see him. He's working on an EKG for the gut that you may want to learn more about. So we're looking at opportunities to put funding in dramatic companies that are making these big technological and scientific leaps. the way we're measuring the impact and the success that we're having is looking at how successful our companies are in attracting follow-on funding. We are not able to continue to invest. We're looking at the market to then move in and pick companies up as we de-risk them. And essentially have set it up as a revolving fund. So our grant, the lawyers wouldn't say it this way, but basically converts to equity at the company's Series A. So we have an opportunity to fund the next generation of science based on the success of our early companies. And to give you a sense of where we are so far, as I've said, so we fund on a rolling basis, and we funded 22 companies. We're very excited that 5 of those closed their Series A last year, which is what we were hoping to see, that if people will put this early investment money in, take some of that technical risk down, that follow-on funders are interested in then picking these companies up and moving forward. We've had 1 acquisition, and we've got a series of investment partners that are interested now in tracking our portfolio and finding these very groundbreaking small companies that are moving science out of the lab and forward so that it can come into the market and come into our lives. The place where we tend to play and where we think there's such an opportunity and where the need is in the market is really around this proof of concept and taking that early technical risk out. So we generally engage with our companies over about a 18-month to 2-year period where they're building that proof of concept, collecting that additional data, getting to the point that a strategic partner or a funding collaboration can come into play to move them forward. So it's hard to know exactly who's in the audience today, but with some of the folks that we talk with, we get a lot of questions about, from the entrepreneur's perspective, what have we seen working with this wide range of companies and what's helpful? So I've brought a few of our sort of lessons learned and the advice that we are often giving to entrepreneurs in this space. We've reviewed, I think the latest count was 980 proposals. So we see a lot of folks saying that they're ready to move forward in these early days of science and technology, becoming companies. And what I will tell you is many of them say that they are going to go jump into the oncology market and, hey, it's such a big market that if we only get 2% of it, we're destined to be this huge company. That falls on very flat ears to most investors. We don't believe it and we're not excited by it. It's usually not how you're successful. We'd love to see that you can actually own a smaller market and grow from there. There are very few companies that are successful that own a very small market of a very small percentage of a large market. So that's a big red flag when that's the math that people are doing to try to be successful. We get lots of questions around this question or this idea of scientist as the CEO. And a lot of the companies that we're funding initially, that founding team is 1-2 people. And the scientist, and maybe they've been the primary investigator on the research or the technology, they often start as CEO. In the past, I would have said the venture market had no interest in funding the scientist as CEO long term. We're advocating and starting to see a new crop of entrepreneurs come up that I would say we're seeing scientist as entrepreneur, and there's a bit more appetite for that in the market. I still think it's something that will continue to be questioned, and most funders want to know if the founding scientist is open to a different role over time, and that might be the right way to grow the company. We are constantly focused on bringing our companies together and pushing entrepreneurs to get out of the lab and find a group to bang ideas around with and support them and be part of an entity. And now you're seeing, right, there's all these different incubator and accelerator programs, and you can evaluate those for the pros and cons. But one of the overarching parts that I think has been great in those programs is building a community around early entrepreneurs. You know who you are. It's a very lonely role, and so having folks that are in it with you is really powerful, and it allows you to do I guess, number 4 up here, but constantly push on what is that hypothesis, who is the customer that you think you're going to have, and God forbid, have you actually talked to them? So we are always pushing folks to get out of the mindset of, I've got this great thing and I'm sure everybody's going to want to use it or it's going to cure this, without ever engaging with who the actual buyer would be, who that customer would be, which is usually deeply uncomfortable for an entrepreneur or the scientist to actually do, but is where you'll find the best information. And you'll be able to understand the de-risking signals that funders value. So there's a technical piece of that, there's a business piece of that, and understanding what are the hurdles that funders want to see you're aware of and you're crossing off your list in order to continue to take risk out of the business. One of the biggest pieces that we deal with are entrepreneurs that have not thought through the return economics for the different types of investors. So they think they'll go raise an angel round and then raise institutional money after that, and they haven't thought through what's that institutional money going to do to those angels, how do the angels view that, how do the next investors view the early investors, and understanding what those return economics look like is vital for the attractiveness and the success of your pitches. There we go. So we've got just a minute or 2 for questions. If anybody wants to come to the front. It's really hard to see out there. Okay, great. Thank you so much.